Welcome to Peculiar Tales, the show where we dive into the stranger things in history, urban legends, ghost stories, and anything else we find, well, peculiar. I'm Christy.
And I'm Dawn. Before we begin our episode, we need to caution you. This is one of our most disturbing episodes yet. Today we're looking into what happened in the late 1880s on a late summer's night in August. We will be discussing a massacre of almost an entire family and the events that followed. This case made its mark on Irish history, both for its violence and because of the miscarriages of justice that followed. Let's look at what life in Ireland was like between the 1840s and up until 1882. Let's look at the events and how they shaped Maamtrasna by the time 1882 rolled around. In the 1840s, the Great Famine was upon the Irish. Between starvation and sickness, close to 1 million people died in the later part of the 1840s. For decades after that, many people started what has been coined as chain migration. What happened here was many people from many parts of Ireland moved away from rural areas in Ireland to new countries. And when they made themselves established, they would send for their families to come and meet up with them in the new location. Many people found new homes in Canada, Australia, USA, and the United Kingdom.
Other people relocated from rural Ireland to Irish cities like Belfast, Dublin, and Limerick. The west of Ireland seen a large depletion in residents. However, the farmers that did stay, well, they rented the land from landlords that usually lived in Scotland and England. By no means was life easy. In 1882, Ireland was in what is known as the Land War. Politics played a huge part. Harvests were anemic, agriculture prices dropped, and the abuse of the landlord system were out of hand. An Irish resistance was formed, and boycotts and campaigns that included rent strikes were now upon Ireland. It has been documented that when there was a protest, the fallout was often eviction, violence, and what some describe as civil unrest. In May of 1882, the Phoenix Park murders took place in Dublin, Ireland. Two high-profile people were stabbed to death in a park. It was said that the Irish National Invincibles were to blame. They were a radical group. Some say that this case made its way to courts in Ireland and Britain, to a more coercive way of doing things. It has been suggested by some that when the courts heard people talking in Irish, they understood this as a type of defiance against the courts.
August 1882, Maamtrasna Island. In the remote valley of Maamtrasna, which is in Galway County, was the home of the Joyce family. The home was made of stone, and some say the roof was thatch. There have been descriptions that the farm had animals on it that the family tended to, and that they possibly grew potatoes. On the night of August 17th, 1882, the Joyce family settled into bed for the night, completely unaware of what was to unfold, unaware of the horrors that was to come. Because of the new moon, the night was dark, because the moon offered no light.
When the morning of the 18th rolled around, John Collins had gone to the Joyces' household. What he found was nothing less than horrifying. John had noticed that the door was off its hinges, which caused concern, and when he entered the house, it appeared that the entire family was murdered in a brutal, savage way. John Joyce, Bridget his wife, Peggy his daughter, Margaret his mother, they were all dead. His sons, Michael, and his youngest son, Patrick, who was also known as Patsy, were wounded in what has been described as serious and severe.
What we are about to describe is both unsettling and graphic. Though some accounts differ on some victims, this is the most common description. John was found naked on the kitchen floor with 2 revolver bullet wounds in his torso. His wife Bridget was found on a bed, brutally beaten and her skull crushed. Peggy, John's daughter, and his mother Margaret were found savagely beaten to death with blunt force. However, when John's sons Michael and Patrick were found, they were alive, but just. Michael had 2 gunshot wounds and died just a day later. And John's youngest son Patrick was found with severe head trauma. Some say the fact that he did survive was nothing less than miraculous. What followed this massacre in the days, weeks, and months later would shake Ireland in a way that history will never be able to forget. The horror of this story is that the massacre is only the beginning of another nightmare for more innocent people. When the boys were questioned who did this to their family, the boys explained that the men blackened and disguised their faces, and that there were 2 or 3 of them. 2 days after the murders took place, 3 men came forward saying they had information. The following sworn statements from the men became testimony later down the road.
Before we tell the accounts of the 3 men, it is worth saying, to help with any confusion moving forward, that many people seem to have the same name, which makes it a bit challenging. So bear with us as we do our best to explain who's who. Anthony Joyce, a cousin to John Joyce, the victim, on the night of August 17th, he was woken by the sound of his dog. When he looked, he seen a group of 10 men walking past his house. It has been documented that he claimed to have followed them and watched them break into the victim's family home. John, brother to Anthony, he said he was awakened by his brother to watch the men go towards the victim's home. Patrick, the nephew of Anthony, also testified that he was with his dad and his uncle and seen the group of men. Because of the information that the 3 men gave the police, 10 men were arrested on the 20th of February, just 2 days after the massacre, even though some of them, it has been said, lived as far away as 7 miles. It has been said that basically the story seemed far-fetched, and most believed it to be this. However, there were some who thought it to be valuable information, at least enough to arrest 10 men solely on this information.
When the trials began, they were moved from Galloway to Dublin. In Dublin, the trials were in English. Most of the men were accused only spoke Gaelic. The man who was representing all the accused men was Mr. Henry Concannon. Henry was 24 and just recently had acquired the qualifications to be a solicitor. Henry only spoke English. This, in simple terms, means Henry could not inform his defendants properly through basic conversation. The defendants were at a disadvantage because they could not understand what was being said during trial. Young Patsy, the now only survivor of the massacre, was at the trials. However, it was decided that because of his young age, he would not be able to understand what it meant to take the oath. So he never had the chance to tell his information to the court. Patsy had given a statement directly after the massacre, but this too was left out. It is said because of his severe head trauma he had when he gave his statement. Patsy did not support the 3 men's descriptions, but no one gave any energy to this fact at the trial. It was thought that because there was a lot of pressure to close this case, it was left out. But this is only speculation.
When it came time for the trial, the 3 men had stated that the dogs awoke them, and when they looked out, that the group of men were passing by. The 3 men also said that they recognized 6 of the men, even though the distance was 200 yards, and it was a dark night, and the men's faces had been blackened or disguised. At some point, the route that the men testified to was seen as ridiculous. In addition to this, as well, was the fact that some of them that were accused were related to the 3 witnesses, and it so happened that there had been a family feud, and the accusations may have been nothing more than part of that.
2 of the accused men, Thomas Casey and Anthony Philbin, said they would give testimony against the other accused men if their charges would be dropped. The 2 men provided more details about the night of the murders. What was said between the 2 men were slightly different but close, as well as they said furthermore supported what the 3 men said they saw that terrible night. One man said there were 10 people, and the other said there was 12.
Miles Joyce was the 3rd man to be tried. Both Patrick Casey and Patrick Joyce were the first 2 to be sentenced to death. It was asked by the court if Miles understood his charges against him. Miles did not look like he understood things, so his solicitor asked for an interpreter for him. Through miscommunication with the interpreter, it was told to the court that he did understand, and because of this, they say this is why no interpreter was given until the sentencing, because the court thought he understood English. Miles only spoke Gaelic and did not understand the English language. Miles claimed his innocence, stating that he was not there at the murders and he had no knowledge or part in the planning either. He said that he was as innocent as a baby never born. He was with his wife that night.
And so it was, with a political need to quickly convict, the so-called eyewitnesses, the language barriers, and the testimony that has been called coerced. In November of 1882, Patrick Joyce, Patrick Casey, and Miles Joyce were convicted and set to hang at the gallows. On December 13th, it is said that Patrick Casey and Joyce explained their guilt in writing and said that Miles was innocent of everything because he was not there. But this did not matter. On December 15th, 1882, roughly 4 months since the murders, 3 men walked to the gallows. Miles himself, in Gaelic, it was said, never stopped proclaiming his innocence. He kept talking till the floor dropped. His dying words were said in Gaelic and debatable by some, because it was translated by those who were there that knew Gaelic. This is what the records show as his last possible words. I am going to see Jesus Christ soon. He too was unjustly crucified. When the floor dropped out, both of the Patricks were almost instantly dead. Miles, though, did not die as quick at all. The hangman, some say, looked annoyed and manipulated the rope to help Miles die quicker. On the death certificate of both Patrick Casey and Patrick Joyce, it says death by hanging. Miles' death certificate says death by strangulation.
It has been documented that Michael Casey agreed to say he was guilty if the other 4 did as well. Michael Casey also stated that Miles had no part in the murder. Thomas Casey in later years also said that Miles had no part in it. They said they were guilty because they were under pressure to do so by a priest, even though they protested their innocence to him. Something that many have agreed was a miscarriage of justice. The 5 men were sentenced to 20 years. 2 of them died in prison, and 3 were let out after their wives appealed to the Lord Lieutenant in 1902.
The miscarriage of justice that Miles Joyce faced and died because was talked about for generations. Evidence came about that key witnesses were bribed. In 2018, Irish President Michael Higgins granted Miles Joyce a posthumous pardon. This is said to be a monumental gesture. President Higgins also said that the trial is a shameful episode on Ireland and Britain's history. So, what unsettles me is that if fear and language barriers prevent justice from happening for the accused, then on some level, justice was not given to the family that was murdered either. That's just my opinion.
That's fair.
So there's a lot to unpack about this story.
Yeah, there is.
So there is some theories as to why the family died.
Okay.
Some thought that John was in the habit of stealing sheep and that this caused the murders. Okay, so going back, time's turbulent.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was that he was going, I don't know if it was out of Maamtrasna, but he was stealing other people's sheep. I
Okay.
don't know if it was to eat or to sell, but
To shear
this was a
something.
rumor.
Mm-hmm.
And also, remember the radical groups we were talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so some thought he was a treasurer.
Oh.
Well, he was a treasurer, but they were saying it was of a secret group. I didn't read anywhere that he was in a radical group, that it was just a secret group, and that he could have misused funds. That was another
Oh.
theory.
Okay.
And then some thought that Margaret, his mother, that she had seen something she shouldn't have
Oh.
and then reported it.
Oh.
Everything that I did research on in Ireland at this time, people didn't trust the police in Maamtrasna. It was a small valley, and it wasn't just this little valley. It was just kind of like a common thing. Like you didn't trust the police. They were
Okay.
corrupt. They were bought off by people, or they had their own opinions, but people didn't trust them.
Okay.
So there was radical groups. There were secret groups. There were different things going on at that time in Maamtrasna.
Okay.
So you could only imagine that if this lady was in the wrong place at the wrong time and saw something, and then, hey,
Reported
guess
it.
what?
Yeah.
Right? Because it was a common thing, like just turn your head, you didn't see anything, like move on.
Right.
So there was a lot of different theories as to why they were even murdered.
Right. But nothing concrete. They never came up with anything significant.
Not that I could find. I
Hmm.
mean, a lot goes to trial. The
Yeah.
story is a lot about the miscarriage of justice for the accused. I even had a difficult time trying to find out what happened to young Patrick as he grew up. Like, how old did he live till? What, you know? Because when President Higgins did this
Pardon.
pardon, it was, if I'm remembering correctly, John Joyce's either great or great great grandson that was there with the
Oh.
president. Yeah, there are pictures online. It was a really big deal. It said that this was the highest thing that the president could do to clear John Joyce's name.
Which
Or Miles Joyce, sorry,
that
to clear Miles Joyce's name.
which is great, but at the same time, too little, too late here.
136 years.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people, they just thought that people were saying he was innocent even if he wasn't. They didn't believe.
They didn't want to believe
It
that he
didn't
was
matter how many
innocent.
people were saying he wasn't there. And then you have those 5 men that said, we're innocent. And when you look up records, it's written as if they were innocent men put to prison.
There's so much in this story that just contradicts itself. Yes, okay, Patrick was wounded very badly, but he said it was 3 guys that came into the house, not 10. 3 guys that came into the house and did this. yet you just completely wiped that information from the only surviving person in the home when it happened.
But Michael also made a statement before he died. Now, they said that the reason Michael's statement wasn't in the trial was because of the technicality of he didn't make it his dying declaration that these men came in. Because the words, "This is my dying declaration," those words were not said by Michael, so they did not bring those words to court, whatever he said.
But had he survived and testified with these words, you would have accepted it. But because he died and he didn't state, these are my dying words.
There's so many technicalities because in our story we explained how in May we touched down on the Phoenix Park murders.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 high-profile people were murdered by a radical group.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, the whole of Ireland seems to be in this state of like complete chaos, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have people fed up with their government. You have a government that's like, just do what you're told.
Yeah.
And then now you have, to call it civil unrest is an understatement, right?
Right.
You have all this tension, all this anger from all these people. And the government is just, oh my God, they're killing us now. And that was in May. And it
Well, it's
seemed like
about to
it,
boil over at some point.
yeah. And it seemed like the courts were really affected by the Phoenix Park murders, from
Yeah.
what I gather. That it changed how things were done in the courts.
Okay.
So now they move towards more coercion.
Okay.
So now, 3 months prior, you have these murders in this park. Now it's August, and you have a family massacre. You have 10 people brought in to be tried solely on the words of 3 people.
Yeah.
You know? So then they get to court, and 2 of the men are like, hey, drop our charges, and we'll tell you all about everything. Okay, well, they did that.
Mm-hmm.
Because the courts just wanted this to go away, from what I gather.
Yeah.
The 2 men, what they said, lined up a bit with the 3 men said, which didn't line up at all to what the 2 boys said.
Right.
But how do you backpedal if you're the government and the police at this point when these people are already angry with you? Pride, I think.
Got in the way.
I do. Like, that's my opinion, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it got so big. Like, how do you go back?
Right.
So now you're not going to let little Patrick's, like, and again, speculation,
Right.
but we're not going to let little Patrick's statement in. He's too young. He doesn't know what it means to give the oath. You know, because his version contradicted what everybody said.
Right.
And they couldn't have that.
No.
No.
Because how do you win a trial when you're completely in the wrong?
And then they mucked it all up even farther because now these men didn't have adequate translators, from
Right.
interpreters, from what I understood. And it just turned into such a messy, sad thing.
And the 3 men who made the claims at the beginning, none of what they said makes any sense. It doesn't.
If I were a detective, I would almost think that they were guilty.
That's exactly what I was thinking when reading the story. I was like, no, those 3 guys did it. Because, first of all, your story sucks. You're talking about being able to pinpoint men at 200 yards in the pitch dark with masks or blackened out faces.
Yeah, how well do you see Christy at 600 feet in the dark?
I mean, don't get me wrong, I wear glasses, but even when my eyes were at their best, not a chance would I be able to tell you who that was.
Even with your glasses on that bring
Oh,
your sight up to level.
no. Nope, not a chance.
Like new moons, that's not a bright moon. That you're not seeing it. It's
No.
dark. You're not seeing nothing.
And then on top of that, too, so when they first said their stories, the one guy was like, oh, yeah, dogs barked. I woke up, I looked, I saw 10 men heading to the family home. And then he said he followed them, saw them go into the house. Then the
That's
other
your
guy
cousin.
says, "Oh, my brother woke me up and I saw the men." And then the other kid says, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Then I was with my dad and my uncle and I saw them too." But then in the courtroom, you said the dogs woke you up and you all saw the men go. Okay, first of all, there's some variation there. But also, too, are you telling me you saw 10 men in masks and stuff heading into a family home? You did nothing about it? You didn't even go after the fact to check on the family. It was somebody else completely that found the family. You didn't come out with this, "Oh, yeah, I saw 10 people," until they were asking around about it. Nothing you're saying makes any sense.
And then you have the man who found the family.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are some that say that he was going to ask a favor to borrow something, and that's why he was there. It was common for him to go. He knew the Joyce
Mm-hmm.
family, but his name never got brought up ever again.
Hmm.
And I found that pretty interesting. The person who finds everybody, like, even to ask him more about the family, about what he knew about them, what they did on a daily, who they
Why
talked
maybe this
to.
would have happened.
Yeah, like
Something.
not so much that he would have been the killer, but did he know more?
Right.
And it just felt like they had to do this fast.
Yeah, at every turn, they just didn't do their job properly.
No, and Miles Joyce, when he was at his gallows, his wife was just, she was either giving birth to their last
Oh,
child or she was about to within a few days.
that's terrible.
This whole thing broke my heart because, first of all, family being massacred in your home when you're asleep, that's that's just evil,
Yeah,
in my opinion. In the one place you're supposed to be
I
safe,
was
right?
just going to
And
say that. It gets you at your core.
so, in a time where people were afraid of people, like we said, it was common for people to turn a blind eye to a lot of things because you didn't want to be in trouble. You didn't want things happening to you.
Right.
Okay, so you're just trying to get through the damn day. You just want to do whatever you got to do and make it to the next day,
Yeah.
right? It just seems to me like if John did misappropriate funds, why kill the whole family? If his mother did report something to somebody, why kill the whole family? Like this is where I sit with it. The whole thing is horrible.
It is.
And I feel like that family that was massacred, now there were the men that said, yeah, we're guilty. But I still feel like the justice really wasn't done. Like it just feels
No.
unfinished for the family that died.
And even the guys who said that they did it, it's hard to believe that they actually did and that they weren't just, "All right, fine, whatever. Yeah, I did it. I'm
Right?
over this because you're gonna make me out to be the bad guy anyways."
Feel that's how those five men felt,
For sure.
you know? And I also feel like this story, when you look at it, it's so damn difficult. So many people are lying.
Mm-hmm.
You can blatantly see where there's some untruths there.
Yeah.
This was a hard story. A family murdered in the darkest of night, and there was the silence that followed the verdicts and the deaths of the gallows. Hindsight is 2020, they say. It's easy because we have in front of us all of the situation. We have all the pieces to see clearly what should have been done. But what happens though when hindsight stays blurry? When it takes 136 years to figure out what should have been done? In the end, some form of the truth did prevail, and that says something. As always, thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard today, leave us a comment, a review, or rating on the platforms you listen to us on, as it helps us reach more listeners. If you would like to help support us, go to peculiartales.buzzsprout.com. Your support helps us make more content. And until the peculiar calls for another tale, bye for now.